Before the video starts, I want to provide something here. Are you familiar with the book, The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz? I highly recommend it. You see how small it is. It's a very good book. It's very concise. It's very to the point. And it talks about agreements. Agreements are the things that we have, what we believe, we hold in within ourselves that continue to guide our lives. All right, there's a part here that I'm going to read. It's just this part right here. Toltec knowledge arises from the same essential unity of truth as all the sacred esoteric traditions found around the world. Though it's not a religion, it honors all the spiritual masters who have taught on the earth. While it does embrace spirit, it is most accurately described as a way of life, distinguished by the ready accessibility of happiness and love. Okay, so this is a way of life, and it talks about agreements and making new agreements, letting go of the things that we have decided upon in life and creating new things. And when I get into this material, that's exactly what this monomyth is for. It's very old. It's super complex. Look how simple this is. We don't have much time today. Back then, they had nothing but time. The stories are complex. Let's begin. In this video, I'm going to respond to a comment that I got on another channel. That I put a comment and was commenting and showing an example. I'll read it here about how the Bible is common monomyth. How it's kind of hard to describe all this stuff in a comment section. So there's just a short example. People respond to that. People agree with it, and not everybody understands it. Some people like it, but they don't respond to it. Many people will defend the Bible and say you might have monomyth elsewhere, but the Bible isn't it. All right, in this video, I'm going to address that. My name is Dan Paulson. Welcome to the video. And this, again, it's not really for that person, but it's like this is good information. When people say things like this, it's a good opportunity to go, no, look closer. Let me show you something. Okay, so here is the comments that were there. I'll read these very quickly and then go ahead and address them. All right, what I put is that Jesus is a common monomyth hero. Watch for the conceptual patterns. Jesus is called as the Son of God. If you know a monomyth, there's going to be a calling. The first thing that happens is a calling. So Jesus is called as the Son of God. He has supernatural powers. That's another thing. You get supernatural powers. Then you travel with hand-picked disciples and seeks the kingdom of heaven within. So he's traveling with a core of people and has a destination, a goal, something to achieve, something to accomplish, the kingdom of heaven within. All right, Jason is called as the rightful ruler. Has Hera for supernatural powers, travels with the Argonauts and seeks the golden fleece. King Arthur is called as the only one who could extract Excalibur, has Merlin for supernatural powers, travels with hand-picked knights and seeks the Holy Grail. George Lucas used Joseph Campbell's template for the first Star Wars trilogy. It did not go on afterwards, but the first three, yeah. That's why the first three were so damn good, and the rest of them were like, nah. Okay, the rest of them just were like adventure movies that didn't follow that template. We connect with the template because it's a human life sequence. We don't know that. We feel part of the story. We feel like we're the hero. Notice that they all feature a doubter or a problem in their midst of travelers. You got Judas with Jesus, Lancelot with King Arthur, C-3PO with Skywalker, and Acostus, the son of Pelias, was a spy that went along with the Argonauts. So in that group of people, there's always going to be a problem. These are shared motifs on a single template. You know what, though? Everything in these stories represents something in the psyche. You turn inward, and this entire story plays out in the theater of the mind. So who are these people in the stories that always have a problem? All right, if you go through, you're going to find out that who's being selected are heroes that have some certain qualities. When we get down to Jesus, what you're going to see is the names. The names are going to be things like, this name means balance, this means justice, this means, anger, or a quick to temper, damn it, I said no, but there's always a doubter, and all of these represent our qualities that we need to go on this trip. We're going to have these along. And who is the doubter? That's the part of us that goes, I don't know. That's the one always along the way that's doubting. I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. I'm scared. I'm afraid of doing this. I want to quit. That's who the problem is. That's why every one of these stories have a problem in that group, because every one of us has inner fears. The stories work like that. They're very complicated. Then I put here, just as a snide comment, worship Buddha instead for all the good it will do. At least you'll be loving and nice and not judgmental and hateful. All right. And then, of course, not everybody likes that stuff. Some people give you grief for saying things like that, but no big deal. It's what it is. All right. But somebody said here, interesting, but Campbell showed we repeat certain motifs over and over. Yeah, so did I right here. I just showed you that. But the Bible story follows a common motif. That the Bible story follows a common motif is consistent with made up, but is far from definitive. No, it's not. Not to me. You see, if you know what a monomyth is and you see it, you will say that's a made up story. And it's definitive. And if you can't see it, you could be a theist or an atheist that has no clue what a monomyth is. We're going to get to that in this video. You know what? Upon editing, I saw this, and after going through it all, I kind of changed my tone a little bit on it. What I understand here is that it is very difficult to see this, and proving it is not going to be definitive at all. Even if I look at it and say, I recognize that pattern and understand how it plays and have done it so many times up here that I recognize them very quickly. Here we go. We got a called person. God just showed up. They're being told to eat this scroll or take these words and put them in your mouth and all that kind of stuff. They're getting supernatural aid. They're getting ready to cross the River Jordan or the River Chebar or the Red Sea or something like that. There's a threshold that's going to cross. They're going to have to go in and go destroy a building or a city or go take over a bad people or something, and you look at it and go, monomyth, monomyth, monomyth. But other people look at that and go, the vast majority of people, you have to train your brain to do it. The Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. I keep telling this. If you can't work it out in your mind and see it, it's just not for you. It's like having a game, but not having the platform to play it in. You have to put the two together. You have to create the platform through cognition and recognition of material from antiquity. Boy, you got to be a fly on the wall way the hell away from here. Meanwhile, try Buddhism. At least the asshole factor is less. It is also not evident that Buddhism is true. We'll get to that too. Not true things can be pursued for utility or better for fun. But the follower should recognize they are fiction, otherwise big trouble potential. Okay, here's what you need to understand. This template is based on human psychology. It is based on human psychology, the stages of a human life, how you're born, how you first start off your unjudging life. Life is open, pure, wide open before you. Now then, we make conscious decisions that become our memory, that are hurt, that are good, that are whatever we are. We become totally different people based on judging our life experiences, and we lose our inner happiness. That is a part of the story. In every one of the stories, we are Adam and Eve in the garden. At first, we're pure. We lose our purity. You're kicked out of the garden. You don't worship that story. It's not a true story, okay? It's like a fable, Aesop's fables, the tortoise and the hare. There's a lesson in there. Is it true? Hell no. Why would you argue that the story is true or not true? That's like arguing whether the Bible is true or not true. There's something in there that you two guys can't see. Atheist, theist, you guys can't see what is there. You're opposing each other on a shallow layer. You're not getting to the depths of the teaching. The teachings are psychology. As far as that Buddhism, same thing. I'm telling Christians you might as well worship the Buddha. What the Buddha really is psychology. Buddhism is psychology. Buddhism is a lifestyle that you can live. But if you just follow the Buddha, what's the very first thing he says in his pivotal teaching, the Dhammapada, verse number 1, in the dual verses? So this is repeated. This is said 2 times. All that we are is the result of what we have thought. It is founded on thought. It is based on thought. Right there. That's repeated 2 times. Every time you have bad things happen, it's going to continue to follow you and cycle in life. However, if you purify it out, happiness will overcome you and like a shadow that never leaves. That's psychology. You don't have to become a Buddhist to do what Buddha teaches. Buddhism is a lifestyle because what are we? We're evolving animals here that have nothing to do. A lot of people need community. Well, let's let's teach this. Let's get together and create an environment that when people don't turn in and they can't quite do that because it's so hard, we're at least creating an environment that helps bring them in and protects them and keeps them nearby. So at any point in time, they get ready to say, okay, I see what to do. I'm ready to turn inward now. They're right there. They've got the material. They're living it. I want to make a real fascinating comparison between the teachings of Lao Tzu and the Taoism and the Tao Te Ching and the teachings from Jesus. And I'm going to paraphrase this. But basically that we are flowing in life from Lao Tzu, from the Tao. The Tao is the flow of life, how the way life works. How does life work? The way is based on certain things. And he goes through this teaching. And he lets you know that the way that you flow, if you're free from hanging on to things, you realize the mystery. But if you're caught in desire, you see only their manifestations. So hanging on to things, you see the repeat of them. However, there's that idea that free from desires, free from those mental connections that we've made, we realize the mystery of life. We flow. Where does Jesus say that? If you come to the altar to leave a gift, and when you're there, you remember you have aught against your brother, set your gift down and go resolve the aught first. Then come back and give your gift. And somewhere there's a section, there's a variety of these. But there's one part where we need to include, and your Father who sees in secret rewards you in secret. What is that? That means if your Father sees in secret, rewards you in secret, that's the way. The flow of life is better. By doing what? By a gift at the altar. What are you doing giving a gift at the altar? We have to think this through. The Christian one is going to be a lot more complicated to work through than the Taoist one. The Taoist one, we know it's psychology. We just go straight there. The Christian one sounds like it does. It may not be psychology, but it actually is. We treat it the same way. So the reason, however, we have to think through some more steps. Why are you giving a gift at the altar? You want a better life. You want a better flow. You want to have a good life, but you remember you have aught against your brother. You go resolve that. What it allows us to say that caught in desire, you see only the manifestations. Here we have, you remember you have aught against your brother, and you're looking for a better life. Stop looking for the better life. Why? Because you have aught against your brother. Go resolve that aught first and come back, and it happens automatically. The flow happens when you let those things go. You realize the mystery. You have to work them through, but you see that Jesus and Lao Tzu are teaching the same thing in radically different, cryptic, local, yet varying distance, time, and people and space away from each other. They're radically different sounding for different people, but if you figure it out, you all figure out the right way. It doesn't matter what color you are, what language you speak, you figure it out. If you don't figure it out, it matters what color you are and what language you speak. Sadly, you stay tribal if you don't figure it out. That's the religion. That's the mythology. It's all that way. It's based on the stages of a human life. Now, Campbell didn't identify all of the templates that are there. What I'm talking about right now are templates that, what does he have? The calling, supernatural aid, refusal of the call. Do we see that in the Bible? How about Exodus? Moses is called on Mount Horeb. He tells God, I'm the wrong person. 3 times he denies it. Calling, denial of the call. Supernatural aid. He gets his staff. Oh, what do we got here? This is a monomyth. It's just made in a story that's not true. He gets his supernatural aid right there. Crossing the threshold, they cross the Red Sea. Well, what the hell? Belly of the whale, 40 years in the desert. Okay, what do we get to Jesus? We don't have all of that stuff up to a point where Jesus is called. Jesus does not have a childhood like Moses does. So Moses has a template there that is not in Jesus. Jesus is just a monomyth. You see him called, Jesus is there. You see crossing of the threshold, what happens? He's baptized. God shows up at that time too. Campbell didn't identify that. God shows up and says, this is my son whom I am well pleased. Then what? He crosses a threshold, he's baptized, and spends 40 days in the wilderness. Does that sound familiar? Those are recurring motifs within the Bible itself. I don't have to pull up and make it read it. Just think it through. You know this story. I will tell you that there are variations, that even though Joseph Campbell has the calling and then the denial of the call or the refusal of the call, no, I don't want to go, that doesn't always happen. Not everybody refuses the call. We saw it in Moses right there. I don't even speak right. Send somebody else. He goes anyway. We don't see it with Jason and the Argonauts. Nope, I'm going to go get my kingdom. There was no denial. It's time to go. We see that in Jesus. There's no denial. I'm Jesus. I'm the Son of God. His supernatural aid, he comes bundled with it, right? Yeah, he doesn't need to get a staff. He already has supernatural powers. Bear in mind, I'm mentally treating this like a Marvel adventure, not like a religion to worship. I'm not at that layer. You have to get to my layer. Don't worship it. Don't deny it. Understand it. There's something hidden in there. Get through the Judeo-Christian verbiage. The Israelites cross the Red Sea and spend 40 years in the desert is the exact same motif as Jesus being baptized and spending 40 days in the wilderness. In fact, let's think about these. You have to know the story. So we're looking for concepts, not identical things, okay? Buddha meditating under the Bodhi tree until he was enlightened and he abstained from eating anything while he was there has to be understood as the same motif conceptually, because it's all playing out up here, and all of the characters represent us no matter how they're carried in the story. So when we are Moses and the Israelites crossing the Red Sea, that means that is our consciousness and all of our inner qualities and characteristics that need to be purified. We're going to cross the Red Sea and we're going to go into the desert and we're going to have a minimal consumption. You can only eat this. That's the same place as being under the Bodhi tree, abstaining from eating, being in the wilderness for 40 days, praying and fasting, or being under the Bodhi tree, meditating and abstaining. All of those are the same motif. These all represent turning inward and getting to a point where you stop and find, I have to get to my inner peace first. This is where I need to be. This higher awareness, this higher self. We're reconnecting with what we really are and ceasing to live through the anguish and the emotional state of the memories or the desires, the things that drive us constantly. Does that make sense? Those are all three the exact same thing, but they don't sound like it. But if you understand them conceptually and understand that they're mental steps, you understand that they're three different ways of describing one mental process. What do we have with Buddhism? Buddha is, in the story, he reaches enlightenment under the Bodhi tree through meditation and abstaining from anything. And he learns what the right way is. And he goes to gather up his Buddhist teachers, just like Jesus. What does he do? Jesus, well, let me finish with Buddha. He goes and but before he gathers up his teachers, he's tempted by Mara. Mara tempts him after he reaches enlightenment. Mara is the tempter, the evil one. When we get with Jesus, he spends 40 days in the wilderness. As soon as he's finished, he's tempted by Satan. Then he goes and gathers up his disciples. Do you see a recurring motif? It is. When Buddha says to seek emptiness, what is that? Empty. How do you get empty? We have to think these through. What does Jesus say? Blessed are the poor in spirit. What the hell is that? These are psychological. What's a spirit? We tend to think spirit is a disembodied something, but not according to this material. The spirit is what you live through, the bundle of memories, the mass of memories, whether it's pure or whether it's full of the odd against your brother, the mote in the eye. That is what we're living through. And that's also the spirit. To become poor in spirit is to be devoid of the judgments. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for yours is the kingdom of heaven. But that's now. You have to understand the kingdom of heaven is not something that happens after you die. It happens right here, right now. This is psychology. It's how to live life, not how to. If you don't interpret it, hang on to this, and when you die, at least you'll be out of the way. What kind of decisions and choices are you going to make after you die? Okay, I'm going to do that now. I see something here that is a psychological inward healing path. It doesn't matter what religion you go to. This same thing is in Hinduism. I can't make this video hours and hours and hours long. I will make that claim. And if you're interested, we can study this stuff, but you have to see it for yourself. People that study the mythology don't quite understand what it is. Joseph Campbell knew that it was an inward path. You don't at any point say they're just made up. Yeah, they are made up. But if you look at them, you will see what they are. They're made up. Every one of them is made up on the stages of a human life. What is the calling? That's it. I've had it. I want to turn inward. The calling is a personal choice. What's the supernatural aid? Do we get it? No, we need to know what to do. We need to know that we made decisions along the way that were hurt as a result, and we've got to go back and address those. That's really the supernatural aid. There isn't any. Crossing the threshold. Again, what is that? That's in the story. Somebody's crossing over, going through an opening, clashing rocks, the Red Sea, barely making it through. You have God's help, clashing rocks, barely make it through. You got Hera's help. You see these recurring motifs. That's the crossing of the threshold. You know what that is? That's turning inward to your mind to where those memories are, to where that rape, that molestation, that abuse, the fear, the bad nasties live. That's crossing the threshold. And it's damn hard. Once you do it, though, what happens? The clashing rocks, once they pass through, they remain open. Why is that? Nobody could make it until finally somebody made it through, then they remain open. That's because once you have turned inward and learned to address your inner pain, your judgments, the hurt, then you can do it again and again. That pathway is open once you've done that. What you're going to soon run into, though, is called the road of trials. And what you're really going to be doing is working to defeat the enemy within. What exactly is that enemy within? Something happened one time between me and somebody else, or me and a group, or something like that. And as a result, I've judged it in this manner, and I hate, I shame, I anger, I somehow, when I bring up that memory, it is not okay. It is not okay. That is what needs to be defeated. That is the frequency of something that needs to be changed. That's why the stories are written in, like you need supernatural aid to change the frequency of this or to destroy this monster. Really what it is knowledge. There is no supernatural aid. Supernatural aid is knowing that what you must do to defeat the enemy is to change that perception that you have so that you're no longer the victim and you no longer, that's where the emotional attachment comes from the event and the way you perceive it. You can't change the event. If you want to change the way it's stored and acts out, you can only change the way you perceive it, which means you somehow emerge out of that victim status or whatever it takes to resolve it. When you can bring up the memory and go, you know what, it's benign. I'm okay. It's not going to act out anymore. If you bring it up and go, God, guess what? It's there. Knocking on your consciousness. As you get into the stories, there's variations. If you actually, this is why Jesus sounds different. There are things inside of us that are hurt. They need to be defeated. We go in there and we defeat hydras. We can even go in, what's he going to do? He's going to, how about the man of the tombs? There's a man that is possessed by many demons, and Jesus cast out the demons that go into the swine that run in and drown themselves. And the man of the tombs is healed. Jesus is not so much one of defeating enemy, is more about healing what is hurt. So instead of saying this event over here, that this memory that is really severe and it causes me to act out angrily and bash through things and pound holes in the drywall and all that kind of stuff. This memory needs to be defeated. I've got to destroy it. You can write a story that way, but this has to become benign in the end. Or you could write a story that says, this is an event that happened one time when I was young. This is a hurt child that needs to be healed, that needs to be resolved. And you're going at the same memory. You're just managing it in a story form in a different way to have a different impact looking outward. Despite the fact that they're both doing the same thing, whether you're defeating the enemy or whether you're healing what is hurt, that's the same thing. That's resolving your inner conflict, the odd against your brother, the mote in the eye. The Old Testament uses that big, severe technique as well. What happens? Okay, what happens? We're going to see a recurring motif here. In Genesis, Cain leaves the presence of the Lord. Right here at some point in chapter 4, God disappears from the story of Genesis. In chapter 1 through 11, God is completely gone. While lineage happens, years go by, corruption happens. Sons of God. Sons of God? Yeah, this is morphing from Babylonian. It's not a it's not a monotheism in the beginning of Genesis. Okay, what happens is the entire world has become corrupt. That represents our experience, our world, and the entire world needs to be destroyed. Okay, so there's a big destruction. At the same time that happens, what do we see? God reappears and calls Noah. There's the calling. God has been gone. God reappears at that time. That is, we have ceased living through our higher awareness. We live through our memories to the point that our world needs to be destroyed. We're going to destroy the entire world and be naked, uncovered, unashamed on the other side. Our sons cover us up. That represents we got more issues. What happens when we get to Abram and Sarai? Abram and Sarai is the first monomyth calling where it is a full-on monotheism. And it's another stage of Genesis. If you look at it, the style is different, and it is now, let us go down and destroy the Tower of Babel, happened in chapter 11. Chapter 12 is where that plural gods no longer occurs. Okay, however, we're going to see this recurring motif. God calls them and puts them in a land of Canaan, where there is a famine. In the same way God had Adam and Eve and had them in the Garden of Eden, but their diet was supposed to be specifically limited to this right here, and not that. This, not that. So what we have in this case, and then God leaves Cain. What we have right here is God sets them up, and then God leaves. God is gone. It doesn't say that, but God is gone. How do we know that? Because Abram and Sarai had to leave Canaan, go to Egypt in order to get food. And while there, out of fear, Abram gives up his wife Sarai to Pharaoh, who thinks she's beautiful, and gives him slaves and animals as a result. So that corruption is happening right there. Where the hell is God? Where's God? That goes on until when? The calling. Chapter 17, when God returns physically and converts Abram, that's early self, into Abraham. You are now the called person. What is it time to do? It's time to destroy Sodom. We got these big, huge destructions happening right after a calling. Joseph Campbell did not identify the reason we go on the path as a cyclical pain element. Do you see a cyclical pain element in both of those stories? In the Genesis story, what is it? The inner self, the Eve self, cyclical pain. You will continually have pain in childbirth. What's the cyclical pain in this one, the Abram and Sarai? What happens after the corruption of the inner self? Sarai gives herself willingly over to Pharaoh, and as a result, they collect animals and slaves. What does that represent? That means we've given our inner self over to corruption. In the same way that Eve gave over to corruption by, you know what, that's not really Adam and Eve. What that is the inner self became corrupted through experience, and we've lost our happiness. Here, we've got our inner self being corrupted through experience, and what happens? Instead of the pain in childbirth, God sends plagues. But the cyclical pain element is there. Pain in childbirth and plagues do not sound like the same thing, do they? Yes, they do, if you understand they represent cyclical pain. Remember that in the Exodus story, all the plagues that were going to Egypt that caused the separation. Pharaoh represents the early self, our divided self that we have to separate from and leave behind. Who comes after us? It's a struggle to leave. The past chases you. Okay, that happens. That cyclical pain element is there. If you went to Jason and the Argonauts, a Greek myth, you'd go, okay, how does that show up here? We go to the island. Before we go through the clashing rocks, remember that's the going into the difficult spot right there. What we do is we go to an island where Phineas, the seer, is there. But he's been punished by Zeus. He's blinded, and that every day he's fed, he's brought food, but the harpies come down and eat the food, defile it, make it so that he's starving and he's hungry. This happens daily. Phineas represents a part of us that knows what to do, but has become blind and is experiencing cyclical pain. We must resolve that and then sail on through the clashing rocks into the mind. This is a journey, psychological healing, in adventure format, in a time when this was there. They had no media. They had no power. They had stories that were a lot more powerful than we give them credit for. We're going to have the same thing with Jericho. Joshua is a called hero, and he's going to have to go destroy Jericho. Okay, these are commonly recurring motifs that if you understand conceptually that they're all of them are built on that template that represents I have to go in and destroy this. I am this called person every time. I'm the one that's turning inward. You start to figure it out. You're defeating something, and in the end, you gain something. You gain a rebirth. You gain a kingdom of heaven within. You gain nirvana. You gain the Holy Grail. All of those are identical motifs. That's the goal that you're looking for, the story holds. But every one of those represents the same thing. I got my mind back. The mind that I had as a child that I lost through life experience is now mine again because I've resolved and let go of those life experiences. And now I've got my mind back. And now it is me. I'm living from here and not my memories. That is why in the stories, the Babylonian creation myth, the Enuma Elish, Apsu, the creator god, gets trapped away, is not brought back until Marduk, the returned hero, resurrects him. What is that? Apsu is our higher awareness, and as life goes on, we lose contact with that higher awareness, and we begin to live through the memories. Life goes bad, cyclically bad. We have these repeated cycles of pain. All right, the recurring motif I want to point out between three different parts of stories between the Babylonians and the Jews right here is this. In the creation, 7 tablets of creation, Apsu, the creator god, soon after creation, and things start to go bad, is gone out of the picture until Marduk, the called hero, is a part of the story, and Marduk brings back Apsu. That's the higher awareness. That's the consciousness saying, you know what, I'm bringing back my higher awareness. When we get into Genesis, we see Cain leaves the presence of the Lord. That's ourselves leaving the presence of the higher awareness. We have left it, and when does it come back? God does not return again until it's time for Noah, the called hero, and the destruction, the rebirth to happen. Okay, in the same way, in the Babylonian creation myth, Apsu, Marduk, here we have God and Noah. When we get down into chapter 12, where it starts over again, we've got God disappearing after putting Abram and Sarai in a land of famine, Canaan. It's the place where you want to be, Canaan. It's a land of famine. What's famine? Devoid of. You're pure. You don't have anything. Don't experience life. Anyway, God is gone as the corruption occurs and then reappears when it's time for the calling to happen. Do you see that reoccurring motif? Where's God in every one of these while life is bad and returns when it's time to start something over? It's time to destroy the bad in the Babylonian works. It's time to destroy Tiamat and all the bad gods and get everything in line. In Genesis, it's time to destroy the world and start over again at the first story. And the second one, it's time to destroy Sodom. Okay, these are recurring motifs. The calling happens, the called hero is responsible to be on the other side of a destruction. That's us. That's going to be a common motif, and all of those represent the idea that at first, when we're young, we're living through a higher awareness, but then we start living through life experiences, and we become exclusively this package. Sometimes that's okay, but if you're the person that wants to go on the path and turn inward, that's when you become the called hero, and your higher awareness takes over and says, you know what? I am not those memories. I need to resolve them so that they stop haunting me. That is what we're on board with right here. Joseph Campbell did not identify all of that. Then, when the calling happens, that's when we understand consciously that we have the option of mentally living through the memories of our experiences or stepping outside of them and going, this is who I really am out here. I keep getting sucked into those because they're not resolved. So from out here, I have to resolve them, and then I'll stop getting sucked into them and they stop hurting me. That's what this material is for. Self-psychology. Okay? You don't really worship the Buddha. This is a very Well, you didn't make that point. I've got family members. I got a brother that is so, oh my God, I honestly, I don't associate with my family anymore. They're really hardcore Christian and Trump supporters still. Yeah, I cannot tolerate them. They're very ignorant. They're very judgmental. They're very hurtful to be around. It hurts my psyche just to be around them and listen to them from such a low place talk down about people, thinking that they're on a high horse at the sanctimony. It hurts me to be around that kind of stuff. I don't associate with them anymore. Anyway, I'm talking to my brother years ago about this, and I'm telling him the comparisons between Jesus and the Buddha, the things that they both teach. Karma is some sort of life reciprocity. What is it? The measure you mete unto others will be likewise meted unto you. The exact same teaching. That's not even a motif. That's a teaching right there, an identical teaching held in different ways. If I said, I know in my own mind I'm hanging on to something from the past and I keep thinking about it and it hurts me. And I tell people that I have, here's what you must do. You must forgive whoever hurt you in order to feel better. And they go, get out of here. I hate that person. No way. But it's really true. When you get down to it, it's like that. When you hold on to it, the way you hold on to it is the way it continues to live through you. So if you don't like it, you have to change the way you're holding it. That's the only thing you can do. And that's a hard place to get to and a hard place to become aware of. So you pass that around because you want people to be aware of it, but there's a secret to it. You don't put it in plain language. You say something like, an anchored ship will not sail. And people that know the secret know that this is about me. That means I'm the ship. Anchored means I'm hanging on to something. An anchored ship cannot sail. A person hanging on to something cannot live life. All right, now you can mix that up. The dog tied in the yard cannot escape. You cycle around that which you cling to. Same thing. The goat chained to the tree in the back 40 will be there tomorrow. All of these are teaching the same thing. You are that right there, and when you're chained to something, you can't escape it. However, it's put in verbiage that makes people go, I don't even know what that means. It's about a goat. It's about a dog, a ship. Okay, so that's how the secret stuff works. You have to interpret it. Everything is analogous. Atheists, there's this argument with trying to correct the Bible or understand conflict. And there are atheists who will tell theists this doesn't make sense. And then the theist will tell them correctly that some of it's metaphor. However, that's not entirely correct. 100% of the Bible is metaphorical. It might be using true elements, but the stories that are in there are not. They're not true. They're meant for something else. Jesus changing the water into wine at the wedding. The wedding represents the reconnection of the conscious and the subconscious up here. Changing water into wine represents the idea that I'm changing my first life, my unawareness. I'm just, water into wine, an emotion, something that feels better. I'm improving and coming up with something good to consume. We're not talking about being a wino down here. This is something that's good. You look at it in a different way. Back 2,000 years ago, most of the water probably smells like sewage. You don't want to drink it anyway. The wine and light beer is probably very common, even among youngsters. We are living in a different culture. We are in very difficult mindsets to understand. The wine is a good thing in this teaching. We're changing it, but it's metaphorical. It means that first, let's think of another story. We go back, and after the flood in Genesis, Noah creates a vineyard and gets drunk off of his wine and is naked. What is that? If it's not true, what does it mean? What does it represent? That means I myself have created a new place. And from this new place, after destroying that other stuff, I'm now living a new life that I feel wonderful from. I'm creating new experiences from my new choice of life after getting rid of all this stuff and resolving the things that I'm hanging on to in my first world that needs to be destroyed. I am now drunk to the point and naked. Naked represents I am now uncovered. Adam and Eve were naked until they sinned, and then they got covered. This is where the covering comes off. The sin is now resolved, representing that. And drunk in this case off of new wine means I am now feeling good. I'm buzzed off of my new life experience. That's a good thing. Jesus tells us that you cannot put new wine into old wineskins, and you cannot put new wine, what is it, old wine into new wineskins. Yeah, the whole story there, what is that? We are the wineskins. Follow it all along. What is wine? New experience. You cannot put new experience into your old self. It'll ruin the new experience and make your life worse. How might that look to us day to day? You might go on from relationship to relationship going, God, everybody sucks. What's the matter with them? Not realizing we're packing our life with us. We're looking outward, not inward. We don't know we're fitting where we're going to get triggered. And if you had those things resolved, the triggering would stop. And people would not be that way anymore. We got to turn inward. Our life experience comes from there. You cannot put old experience into your new self. Otherwise, that'll ruin it. You have to put new experience into a new self. You have to put new wine into a new vessel. You must put new experience into a resolved self. That's how these work. They're psychological. That's like becoming aware of your inner hurt and knowing that I have to resolve it. I have now changed water into wine in the wedding chamber at the day of the wedding. I'm starting to work on healing myself, but the stories are put in a way that make you go, oh, that's a miracle that happened and I'm going to worship this person. It's going to keep you close if you have the kind of mind that's going to believe that. Okay, a Buddhist mind does not think, we don't worship Buddha. Buddha's not coming back. I left my brother's story there, didn't I? So I'm talking to him about the comparisons between Jesus and the Buddha, and he's just like, well, then Buddha must have learned from Jesus. It's like, Buddha was gone 500 years in history before Jesus ever showed up. And he, it's like, why would people worship the Buddha and things like that? They do the same thing. Westerners are very poorly educated, and they do a lot of assuming because I am this way, then you are that way. Although I'm waiting for Jesus to return, you guys are waiting for Buddha to return. You guys are, you know what? Buddha's not going to return. Everybody has a Buddha nature. Jesus, the man, the Son of God, is not going to return. The Christ nature returns. Buddha returns every time somebody finds nirvana. Christ returns every time somebody finds the kingdom of heaven within. These are metaphorical, but they're psychological stories to interact with. In no case are they something that once you interpret them and interact with them, they are not anything to worship or to have faith in. They are psychological steps to resolve your pain and to change your resultant life and your flow in life as a result. That is what they are for. If you interpret it, I don't care where you are on the globe. I don't care whether you're a Hindu, whether you're an Abrahamic, Taoist, Buddhist, anything. They're all framed on that exact same human life template, put in their own lingo, built in their own structure. Those are vehicles for an evolving mass. Meanwhile, if you figure out what's in there, you find one thing that every human needs, no matter where in the world you come from. All this divisions, all that kind of stuff we have going on are happening because of tribal evolution. True religion is anybody that was really figuring things out would understand it's psychological, and that really what we're dealing with in religions is just tribal humans. That we're going to get to an evolutionary point where there's too much, and we see it already happening. Tribes demonizing other tribes for what? You know what? Because there's too many. That's the real reason. Anyway, okay, I wanted to say that here in this. That it is absolutely monomyth. The Bible is monomyth, or there's other variations of teachings in there that are not monomyth, like groups of the Psalms, Proverbs, things like that. Those are not monomyths. Anyway, I want to wrap this up. Let me see what we've got here. Interesting, but Campbell shows we repeat certain motifs over and over. Yes, he does, and so do I, and I see those, and I see more than he saw. He saw the monomyth. He did not see the human life myth that leads up to it, from God placing you someplace and then disappearing and then returning later. He just saw where God returned. That is the most common. But if you look around, you'll see a few ahead of that. Moses is called on Mount Horeb. What is that entire section from him in the basket up to that point? That's a calling. He's being isolated out. He's being going through life experiences and is dividing between his earlier self Pharaoh and he represent the same person. That's us. That's our inner divided self. The same way Cain and Abel is. And we've got to, yeah. All right. The Bible story follows a common motif is consistent with made up. Yes. But it is far from definitive. Not to me. It is so definitive. I can just see that monomyth. It is absolutely, yeah. Meanwhile, try Buddhism. At least the asshole factor is less is also not evident that Buddhism is true. Okay, I made my point on there. And you know what? If you understood what I said, I was telling Christians sarcastically, you might as well worship Buddhism for all the good it's going to do you. Buddha is not coming back, and neither is Jesus. That was my point. All right, Buddhism is true, but Buddhism is psychology, and it's a lifestyle when it's not psychology. It's a lifestyle that is still really steeped in psychology, the meditation, the clearing the mind, the watching stuff come, the watching them go through your, gradually washing things off, gradually becoming accustomed to things and becoming healed from things in a slow process. But all of it is psychology. If you're a Buddhist, you're doing self-psychology. It might be a lifestyle that is meant to do and cause certain habitual things to happen because we're creatures of habit and we're not hunting and foraging anymore. We got time on our hands and we need to occupy it in some way. Humans are that way. Not very many of us can sit with nothing to do for a lifetime and continue to do things and process information. Most people need things. Yeah, there's some thinkers, and there's not a lot of them. Anyway, okay. So the point here is that, no, I'm not suggesting at all that Buddhism is right or wrong. I'm suggesting that, obviously, by the video, that it's a psychological process. You don't have to be a Buddhist to do what he does, to follow his instructions. You don't have to be a Taoist to follow the instructions of Lao Tzu. You don't have to be a Christian to follow the teachings of Jesus. In fact, in that case, if you're a Christian, you're not going to follow the teachings of Jesus. And if you do actually follow the teachings of Jesus, you will advance beyond being a Christian, the carrier of the ark. You will become the person that opens it and looks inside. These are all metaphorical steps. All right, what was the last one? Not true things can be pursued for utility or better for fun. All right, yeah, I get what you're saying. You can go down any rabbit holes. And actually, that is what you're supposed to do. That's life. That's how you learn. You go on your own and you learn. You go down rabbit holes and you explore them. Some might seem like nonsense and you don't do them at all, but there's other ones. I've gone down rabbit hole after rabbit hole in life. That is how I learned what I know. In fact, you can look at Buddha for a direct correlation of that. When he first starts off on his path, before he seeks enlightenment on his own, what does he do? He goes to all of the spiritual masters that he can find and becomes their student and learns from them until he has questions they can no longer answer and he moves on. What's he doing? He's going down rabbit holes. Damn it. You doing this? You're a Buddha. The thing is, you don't stay down the rabbit holes. You just go down there and learn until you see that they're just stuck in a rabbit hole. They don't have what it takes. They're all hanging on to something that's similar, but they don't know what it is. The Gnostic and the Christian are just like so at odds. When meanwhile, the teachings of Jesus, held in different verbiage, is going to be the exact same thing, regardless of whether you're interpreting it from the Bible or from the Nag Hammadi. The teaching is going to be the same if you interpret it. If you don't interpret it, you're just going to be at odds with everybody. If you're a Gnostic and say, I'm a Gnostic and I've got it right and the Christians have it wrong, you're wrong. If you're a Christian and say, we've got it right and the Gnostics have got it wrong, you're wrong. If you're an atheist who says, you know what, it is all a bunch of baloney, it's completely made up, you too are wrong. Now, Jesus, Buddha, Lao Tzu, I don't think those characters ever existed at all. They follow a common monomyth character. That's like, did Luke Skywalker really exist? No. King Arthur? Jason? Hercules? There's a point you go, okay, these are all stories made on the same template. However, the adventure on the outside is all radically different, despite the fact that it is still your adventure. It's the template of a human life. All right. I know the video's gotten long, but yeah, people are not into this. So, but I wanted to make a comment on that one. Somebody told me I should, stick with this kind of stuff, but honestly, this kind of stuff people aren't interested in. It takes a long time to explain it, and people, I don't know. I see on other channels people saying, thanks for not having AI, but that doesn't work on my channel. Yeah. Anyway, all right, well, my most popular stuff is exposing things like David Paulides and that sort of stuff. That, yeah, I get more attention with that. This seems to be something that has gone by the wayside now in humanity. Maybe the future, after shit hits the fan and things settle back out and people are wondering what went on and how to pick up the pieces, maybe they'll find this and realize, okay, that was a problem. Yeah. That whole Abrahamic thing destroyed humanity. Because that's exactly what it's doing. It denies reality. It procreates like lemmings. It takes. It kills. It's tribal. But within it, it justifies itself as God's chosen, which then allows them to mentally demonize innocent others. That's not survival of the fittest. That's a term that's being used, but that's not really right, is it? It's the survival of the biggest and the most violent that has the capacity to overtake the environment. That's what it is survival of. All right. Well, see you in the next video.